Give it about 30 more seconds, get our folks gathered. There's Mr. Bill. There is Director Cameron. Thank you, sir, for joining us this morning. I'm going to go ahead and read our antitrust statement, and I'm going to then throw it to Bill with Director Cameron to facilitate the dialogue. So just real quick, this coalition has been organized to promote the common interests of its members and members of the insurance industry by promoting ethical insurance marketing in a dynamic cooperative environment. In furtherance of this objective, the coalition is committed to operating with the letter of spirit of all applicable federal and state laws, including antitrust laws. Good morning and welcome to this week's forum. Without further ado, I'm going to let Bill introduce our guest, Director Dean Cameron from the Idaho Insurance Department, and take it away, Bill.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you, Director Cameron, for joining us. Director Cameron serves as the director of the Idaho Department of Insurance, the state's chief insurance regulator. He's a former state senator and a longtime public servant, and he's known nationally for his leadership within the NAIC and his focus on fair competition in the insurance marketplace. We really appreciate you joining us very much, Director Cameron. Welcome.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here.
Great. What we're going to do today is I'm going to start it off with a couple of questions that I think are of interest to everybody, given some of the recent news, and then we'll kick it to more of an open discussion amongst the membership. The thing that's on my mind, and one of the things I was excited to ask you about, Director Cameron, is your October 15th bulletin that clarified Idaho's position that restricting access to filed Medicare products or changing agent compensation midstream constitutes an unfair trade practice. Can you share what specifically prompted this bulletin? Was it a pattern of carrier behavior that you and your department observed? Was it stakeholder complaints, or was there some coordination perhaps that took place with federal partners like CMS that led you and your department to act?
Well, I wish I could say there's been coordination. Certainly, we are in the process of reaching out and visiting with CMS. Of course, CMS is dealing with the skeleton crew, and that's not been an easy access. But we did not seek permission, nor do we think we need to. What started happening in Idaho, and I first thing I need to say is I recognize that not every state's market will be the same as Idaho's, and their marketplace is different. And by the way, by way of foundation, I should inform you or let you know that Idaho's health insurance marketplaces has been in the years very healthy. We run our own state-based exchange. We have 8 carriers on the exchange, and usually somewhere between 160 and 200 plans available to Idaho consumers. We have a healthy marketplace when it comes to Medicare supplements. We have a healthy marketplace when it comes to Medicare Advantage plans in the past. The only weakness that appeared on the horizon was that not every county had access to Medicare Advantage plans because of the provider networks. And, it's a hard thing to be able to discuss or convince CMS, but many of our counties, we're a large state, a large geographical state, and many of our counties, people drive to their medical provider, which may be across the county line. But according to CMS rules, that's not how they view things. So we've typically had a very healthy market, and we still have a healthy market with the exception of the Medicare Advantage market. 2 years ago, we started seeing in the Medicare Advantage market some weakness, some carriers indicating that due to the Inflation Reduction Act that they were not getting compensated what they need to be compensated. And then we had one carrier that ostensibly pulled out right before open enrollment. That didn't bother us much, but what ended up happening is then that caused excessive enrollment to go to another carrier. Mm-hmm. And so then we come to this year, we started seeing one carrier pulling out, then another carrier pulling out. Then we started seeing carriers who were not pulling out, but were trying to hide their enrollment, trying to steer people away from them, trying to discourage folks, seniors who need help, from enrolling. And they were doing this by pulling their applications off their website, or they were making their paper applications not be available. Licensed agents were not even able to get their paper applications. And then we started seeing one carrier removing commission, and then another carrier removing commission. And it really became a race to the bottom, as we refer to it. And we still have carriers that are potentially headed in that direction, although I think the combination of things that have happened. So you mentioned the bulletin. We issued the bulletin to clarify, to say to the world what we considered an unfair trade practice. We believe the bulletin has strong legal footing in our statute as to unfair trade practices. And so we very carefully drafted that. We then issued what we call 247 letters, which are investigative letters that went to a couple of the carriers that were most egregious in their activity to dissuade. Now, and then we followed that up with cease and desist orders to 2 carriers. We are in the process of looking at other carriers for both investigative letters or cease and desist orders. We've got a couple of other carriers, smaller carriers, who have are potentially headed down the same path, although not as aggressively. Their applications may still be available, but they're looking at curtailing commissions, or they have curtailed commissions. Now, and I guess I would just say, we first of all, we acknowledge the critical role that agents play in helping consumers choose the most appropriate plan for them. I think there is a certain level of disrespect by the carriers that are doing this. These carriers will tell you they're not doing it for the money, although we're asking that question and haven't provided. They're doing it because they want to discourage enrollment. They are afraid of the actions of another carrier. They are afraid that they're going to end up taking on too much enrollment. And while I can certainly appreciate them being concerned by over enrollment, I point out to them, we just had a meeting with one of the carriers yesterday. I point out to them that, look, you got to design the plan. You spent money to design the plan. You got to design the parameters of your plan. You got to price the plan. You decided the actuarial computation. And if you did your job right, you were charging an adequate premium for the benefits you're providing. And on top of that, you loaded in that rate development a commission. They'll quickly argue, yeah, but we filed with CMS a range. I said, we don't care what you filed with CMS. You had a loaded amount in your rate development that you planned on paying in commission, and you're still charging seniors for that commission and not paying it to the agent. It's really become really challenging. We almost every day I'm taking calls from agents and others. Some have determined, for example, that because of the prescription drug coverage or because of the network or whatever, that they have a customer that needs to go on United Healthcare. Sorry to call out a name, but I will. But United won't give them an application. They can go to Medicare.gov and enroll on United, but that means the senior has to do it by themselves. The agent can try and help, but that's a little extraordinary because, as you know, you go and set up, you have to set up an account on Medicare.gov. You have to create a password. You have to create an email. You have to respond to that email in order. And so is the agent supposed to inappropriately or fraudulently pretend to be the consumer in order to help the consumer who may not even have email or may not even have internet access, or not know how to fill out all of the form. And so in my mind, and of course I'm biased, but the role of the agent is critical in helping seniors, some of our most vulnerable population. And I think it's beyond the pale that carriers would charge a senior for agent services that comes in the form of a commission, and then refuse to allow that consumer to have access to an agent.
Director Cameron, we absolutely applaud that point of view that you have, and I think you're going to find a lot of alignment on this call. It's interesting, when I was explaining to somebody who I work with, but who's outside the industry, I used to work with rather, who's outside the industry, the theory of the case, they focused in on exactly one of the last things you mentioned, which is these plans are developed, priced, and filed with the state of Idaho, with this range of compensation built into them. So presumably that's something that the consumer is paying for, yet it's not coming out on the other end. And that's something that, none of us can really get our minds around, and we compliment you for taking action on that. I want to ask one more question before opening it up to a larger discussion, which is the critical momentum that I believe that you've started, leading in the actions that you've taken. We've seen Delaware 2 weeks after you issued your memorandum addressing, they issued a statement addressing nearly identical issues, producer compensation, access to applications, which is frankly a new one to me, and guaranteed availability rights. You already mentioned that there wasn't any coordination that led to your action, but do you see what you've done as starting a cascade, if you will, an avalanche that maybe even NAIC, the Senior Issues Task Force, or the Market Regulation Committee, do you see any of these entities getting involved in more than just 2 or 3 states making a stand on this?
No, I certainly we didn't do it to start a revolution, but that's okay. We don't mind leading. We'd never have mind leading. We kind of relish leading,
as you should.
And so we honestly did it because we thought this was in the best interest of Idaho consumers. We had expressed concern to some of my colleagues about what was going on, but every state might be slightly different. It's interesting because I talked to Commissioner Navarro in Delaware as we were starting to do this and told him what was going on. And he said, I don't think we have that problem in Delaware. I said, well, you might want to check. And then 2 weeks later, he issues the bulletin.
Right.
I think there are a handful of other states that are considering it and reviewing their law. Granted, not every state may have the same level of language in their unfair trade practices that we do. Granted, we have yet to hear what CMS's take is on it, and I think there is a legal argument that's going to play out in court. The carriers are regulated. The advantage carriers are regulated by CMS as far as their product design, as far as their rate development. That's who they file their rates with. That does not mean the carriers will argue, well, that means you don't have any authority. We say, well, we beg to differ. First of all, you're licensed in our state.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, you agree, according to CMS, that you're going to follow the laws of our state. So that's obviously going to play out, and we believe that we'll end up in district court here shortly. We know that some of the strategy of the carriers is simply to get past this open enrollment, mm-hmm. and maybe then they'll agree to back up or do something different. Well, obviously that's not going to be quite good enough for us. We're going to ask them to retroactively pay commissions on the cases that got sold without commission. We're going to ask them to retroactively, one of the carriers, for example, was sending out contract notices to their agents saying, you got to sign a new contract, because they knew in their contract, it said they were going to pay a commission. So now they've all of a sudden they're running and asking the agents, telling them they got to sign a new contract by November 1st. And if they didn't, they would lose their other business. That's called coercion. That's not appropriate.
No.
And so we obviously there's actions that the department is lining up that we'll have to take, and we'll ask those carriers to rectify, assuming we're successful. Now, who knows what a judge is going to say? I think we're on good, strong footing. My attorneys think we're on good, strong footing, but I don't get to make that decision. I can make it at my level, but at some point, then a judge is going to be able to see it. Hope I answered your question.
You answered my question very well, and I think that, just speaking on behalf of the coalition, this is one of those rare opportunities where doing right by the agent, doing right by the beneficiary, the people of Idaho, the people of Delaware, and hopefully several more states in the future, those things have all come together around this single issue. And again, we appreciate your leadership very much. I want to open it up, and I believe we have about 15 minutes more remaining of your time, and we're very grateful for your generous, giving us your time this morning. Just go ahead and come off of mute and come on video if you have a question for Director Cameron, and we'll go ahead and allow him to explore any questions that you might have specifically for him. Helene is here. Helene, please go ahead. Helene is our is a former CMS person and a renowned lawyer in this space. I'd love to hear what you have to ask.
Hi, nice to meet you, Mr. Cameron, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us. I was hoping you might say a little bit more about, have you had a notice of some legal challenge to your action? Or do you expect that the carriers are going to challenge the enforcement pieces you've taken? Because that's not something at least we've seen or I've seen as yet. Yeah,
nothing has been filed formally as of yet. They had till yesterday to respond to our 247, our investigative letter. And they both did. We're in the process of reviewing their responses. They, as carriers typically are, they may not be as complete as we would like them to be. So there may be further requests. In our meeting yesterday with Pacific Source, they made it clear, and they were respectful. They have a good relationship with the department, but they made it clear that they intended on challenging in the Ninth Circuit. And we don't know. I mean, there's a couple of different steps that could take place. They could, on their own, challenge in the Ninth Circuit, and which we would go and argue. Another step that may take place is, depending on what is shared with us in our investigative letters, we may decide to take administrative action. And that administrative action, of course, then allows them to request a hearing, at which time I would appoint a hearing officer. In my state, I can act as the hearing officer or the appellate officer, but obviously I'm a little vested in this one, so I would definitely have to appoint a hearing officer, in my opinion, and then that would, if they didn't like the outcome of the hearing officer, then they could appeal to the district court. So that's a longer approach that could take place, or they may just go directly to the Ninth Circuit.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anybody else?
Well, Bill, maybe why somebody else is thinking a question, I remembered the second half of your question, which was, do I anticipate other states joining it?
Yes.
And I do. I've had numerous conversations with many of my colleagues and counterparts. Some of them are trying to figure out where they're at and whether they have the legal authority. I would not be surprised to see in Oklahoma or in New Hampshire or Minnesota, or maybe even in Illinois. So that, by the way, this is not a, I know I'm a very red state, but this is not a red and blue
Not at all.
issue. This is an issue, as you said, about protecting consumers and protecting, the agents that are trying to serve those consumers. I know that there are, we've received a number of calls from legislators from various states who are trying to get involved and trying to understand, maybe their state is saying, well, we don't think we've got the authority. And so now the legislators are looking to say, well, wait a minute, if they don't have the authority, how do we give them the authority? And so we certainly advocate for you and your membership to be involved in your state, to connect with your legislators, to connect with your commissioner or the staff at the department, and help them to understand why it's really unfair to the senior. And that's really what it's all about. My experience is most of the agents do a wonderful job in trying to help that senior, regardless of the compensation. But compensation is necessary for the agent to stay in business. When I was an agent, did I sell Medicare Part D plans? Sure. Did I get compensated for them? No, because it wasn't worth it. But most of us know that we take care of the consumer first and the paycheck comes second. And so we applaud the agents for continuing to do a good job in taking care of agents and to do what's best for the agent, or taking care of the consumers and doing what's best for the consumer, finding the plan that best suits that consumer, that consumer will be best protected in. So
you're absolutely right, Director Cameron. That is a call to action that we all need to take to heart. This coalition has been very, very active as a group, but even as individuals in our states, all of us could do more to make these type of contacts, especially because you're talking to, probably the majority, if not almost everybody in this call being a licensed agent. Certainly all of us having a stake in this business, certainly all of us wanting to do what's best for the beneficiary and to protect the agent's role in getting the beneficiary what they need. There is local action that we can take. Jameson, you have a question. You've got your hands up. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Bill. Director Cameron, first off, thank you very much for being here. This is very encouraging to hear what you have to say and help spur us into action. In addition to the IMC, I also serve on NABIB's Medicare Advisory Group. And so as you can imagine, this is a very large and important topic for us at the moment. And we're trying to get the word out to a larger audience to help spur action. Is there any advice or tips you can help give us which would encourage a greater sense of urgency amongst other departments of insurance throughout the country as we're having these conversations?
Jameson, that's a really good question. First of all, I think a lot of it's in the messaging. I think agents need to, as far as the messaging, and by the way, NABIB's done a great job. I've never seen, in my 35 years being associated with the industry, I've never seen an alignment between NABIB, NAIFA, the independent agents, and others, and your organization. I think that's a silver lining in this whole mess, is that I think everybody is speaking with a much more unified voice that way, and I think that only bodes well. I think I encouraged my NABIB members, as they were talking to legislators, I encouraged them to do two things. Number one, I encouraged them to focus on the impact on seniors. That has to be the paramount message. We're not just doing this because I had one legislator say to me, well, we got told, and I know who told them this, but we got told that agents make more than 50% commission on these. I said, well, first of all, that's an inaccurate statement. Secondly, that's beside the point. That's not That's not the issue. So we know that there will be the forces against will try and make it seem like agents are making plenty of money. So let's not even engage in that argument with them. Let's focus on the senior and the access to coverage and taking care of. Secondly, and I would suggest that, you know, every state's slightly different. You know, there's 12 states that have elected commissioners. The rest are all appointed, usually by their governor. Some are appointed by other boards or entities, or they serve underneath somebody else who's appointed by a governor. So whatever that state organization is, if that insurance commissioner is appointed by a governor, we need to reach out to that governor, to the governor's staff, and we need to thank that governor for having a commissioner who is interested in protecting the consumer, who is interested in protecting those seniors. So I encourage my local NABIB chapter to send messages via social media, via calls, via emails to my governor's office. Now I haven't told my governor that I did that to him, but I knew that he would start getting pressure from the other direction. Those carriers won't miss a beat, and they're going to be beating down his door to try and tell them that their insurance commissioner's gone rogue. So I'm trying to balance that playing field. I'm playing a little defense, if you will, right? And so if you're in a state where it's a board, or you know, maybe you're Oregon, where the insurance commissioner serves underneath somebody else, well, maybe instead of the governor, maybe it's that individual that's oversees the insurance commissioner. The states that are on the bubble about trying to do something, and frankly, I think there's a lot of southern states that should. I don't know why, and I know these, you know, John King from Georgia and Tim Temple from Louisiana and Mike Jaworski from Florida, and all of those guys should be on board. They also recognize the importance of having a decent relationship with the carrier community, and I guess the concern that's been raised is, okay, if we do this year, what happens next year? And that is a concern. I think what happens next year is going to be based on how many of the rest of my fellow colleagues line up with me. If there's a significant number of colleagues who, by the way, advocate for the role I'm taking, they advocate that we have the right and responsibility to regulate the Medicare Advantage plans. If a number of my colleagues will join with me in that, then I think that will help stabilize the marketplace. But if Idaho is just a one-off, maybe Idaho and Delaware, maybe we get ignored. Maybe carriers say maybe they're not going to play in Idaho anymore, or they'll file products that are zero commission products. And so we hope, we're working the back end of that story. We're working with CMS now as well to hopefully share in that regulatory construct and help them understand why that would be inappropriate. You know, CMS, by the way, and I'm sorry, Bill, I keep.
Oh, no, go ahead. Please go ahead.
CMS sets the cap on what commissions can be for these products.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to suggest to them they should also set the floor.
I exactly where I was going to go with that. And also, in addition to that work, do you see in the future an NAIC developing a model bulletin or a model regulation addressing these unfair market practices? You're a past president of the NAIC. I don't see a lot of people that are opposed to the work that you're doing. Sure, there's questions about the applicability in terms of, do you have the right to do it? I think you've made the case that you very clearly have the right to regulate these products in the way that you're doing so. Do you see this? Is this going to be a topic of discussion at that level?
it certainly is going to be, the initial actions are a topic of discussion. I've been invited to participate in what's called the Senior Issues Task Force.
Mhm.
We are a member of that task force already, but I've been invited to present to them at our fall national meeting and that's coming up in December. And certainly I think that will spur some discussion. I would tell you that, and Sean knows this from his years watching the NAC, it is not an easy lift to create a model law or a model bulletin. And candidly, I've resisted at times. It's not easy for any commissioner to go in front of the legislature and say, hey, we have to pass this because the NAIC said so. Or because it's now an accreditation standard and we have to pass this. And so, you know, we've been successful. The legislature, who generally typically will listen to me, will go along, but it's not easy. And for some states, it's even, I mean, I'm blessed. Other states, they may not even have a decent relationship with their legislature. And, you know, I can remember, I won't call the state out, but I can remember one commissioner saying to me when I was president, can you help me talk to my legislators? Because they won't listen to me. And so we did. But, you know, some of it could also be organic. You, in your organization and membership, have relationships with legislators too. And so I think, as I said earlier, you know, having legislators reach out and say, okay, what's absent in our law that we could help give our state commissioner the authority to do what Idaho did? And we're obviously very happy to help any way we can.
Thank you, Director Cameron. Sean, you had your hand up?
Yeah, if you've still got time, sir, just a quick question related, but kind of a little shift. A few years ago, I think it was during your presidency, NAIC wrote a letter to CMS saying, hey, you've got all these regulatory concerns or enforcement actions, blah, blah, blah. Let us help. Basically, it went nowhere. New administration, do you see that effort maybe going again with trying to get a different result?
I do. I do see some real opportunities there. It was during my year as president, we strongly advocated for giving us the regulatory authority over Medicare Advantage plans. In hindsight, that was probably too strong of a message because they recognize they're spending federal dollars on these Medicare Advantage plans, and they have in their mind a regulatory responsibility. Just earlier this year in May, I was in DC visiting with my U.S. Senator and members of our delegation, and my senator, Senator Crapo, is the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, and so they were trying to put together the big beautiful bill at the time, and so one of the ideas that we pitched and they were very interested in is a shared regulatory responsibility. We already do share regulatory responsibility in other components. So I think we'll see that develop further and have a larger construct. We pitched, look, we can save the federal government money. We still are, you know, obviously it costs money for us to regulate too, but we still are regulating the industry. So it only makes that carrier more responsive to us on a consumer complaint. So hopefully, keep our fingers crossed. That's in process and will also come down the road.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Well, we want to be respectful of your time, Director Cameron. We know that you have a lot of things that you need to get to. We appreciate very much you spending time with us, but I think more than that, we appreciate the work that you're doing, leading the charge to make things more fair for agents and better for beneficiaries. It's something we can all get behind. If the IMC can at all help you, we are at your disposal. And you've already given us great direction in terms of what we need to do to act locally to make sure the people who are responsible for insurance in our states understand our shared concerns about how curtailing the market in the way carriers seem to be doing right now hurts ultimately the beneficiaries in terms of plan choice. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time, and we wish you all the success in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity and would welcome visiting in the future as things move along and you want updates.
Consider yourself an honorary member.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, hey, thanks to Director Cameron. Just real quick as a follow-up, Bill, I thought maybe we have a few minutes of conversation. I mean, I kept the rest of the agenda pretty light. And just, it seems like one of the next steps is we need to organize amongst ourselves with various states and really get out and let's go visit our commissioners and let's basically, point to what Idaho's done and now Trinidad Navarro in Delaware. And here's the funny thing. I mean, on the political spectrum, those two couldn't be further apart. So that's the amazing thing about what's going on there is it's like he said, it's not red or blue. This is just common sense.
That's right.
So
yeah, in a sea of partisanship, this is the rare bipartisan, island that we're finding.
Yeah, and so, I mean, usually insurance becomes such a political lightning rod, AKA, the ACA. But in this case, it's good. So I think, Will, if maybe you and I can sit down with Bill and a few others and others that want to get involved, please let me know. And let's, kind of start going out and seeing where can we, people make the visits. I can definitely cover my home state, but let's reach out to our commissioners and stuff. So I'll work with Will on that to go. Any other follow-ups that we should think about while it's fresh in our minds?
No, but I will look forward to, I will definitely get Florida covered and take a trip up to Tallahassee.
I appreciate that. All right, let me just go back real quick to the rest of our agenda. Like I say, kept it purposely light because we wanted to maximize his time. We actually ended up getting a few extra minutes. I kind of thought we'd have a harder stop at the bottom of the hour. Announcements, we have our Q4 board meeting and annual meeting be the 7th of December in conjunction with the DNC conference, the Fuller Compliance Conference. Hopefully many of you will be going to that. If you haven't already signed up, please do. The link is in the agenda that you get each week. With that, we need to find a kind of a keynote speaker. So Bill, I had a couple ideas in mind, some commissioners or maybe some of their deputies, but wanted to see if other folks had thoughts that they might want to pursue. So if you have them, please let me know. I think, Bill, is Rachel here? We have an announcement on the treasurer.
I'm
Yep.
sure she is. There
I'm
she
here.
is.
There she is.
Hello.
Hey, ma'am. Wonder if you could update us on the backfilling of our treasurer.
Yeah, so we had two wonderful board members that stepped up. Both Alex Liebergall and Scott Gilman said that they would be willing to take over the treasurer position. So we had a quick board vote, and Scott Gilman will be taking over. So we're doing some background work to get a lot of information switched over from Cleland to Scott. And we're going to thank Edie in advance for all the work she's going to be doing to guide us through this process. It'll be a lot of heavy lifting, but thanks a lot to both Alex and Scott for throwing their hats in the ring. This is a big job, and we appreciate that we had two people willing to do it, and we're going to be leaning on Scott to get the job done. So thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I think that's it for announcements. Any updates, Helene? I imagine not on the rule. I think nothing's going on in Washington other than just people pointing fingers and staring at each other.
Yeah, there's nothing that we've heard. There is something that came out. I'm still reviewing it. That seems to be a more general government statement about deregulatory action. A few of my colleagues and I are going to be writing a summary of it, but it affects more than just CMS, but could be relevant, certainly very relevant in the MA context, talking about kind of prioritizing regulation, like deregulatory actions, and on what basis the agencies should be taking or making such analyses. So I can let people know when we put something together, but I'm happy to share a link to that document if it would be helpful for people.
Yes, please. Thank you. All right. Any AEP and open enrollment war stories? We've got both going on right now. I know Bill and I were texting back and forth, and in the ACA market, it's dead's probably too strong a word, but it's pretty light out there. A lot of people, I think, are sitting on their hands right now. Has anyone seen any different? Like I said, the conventional wisdom I'm getting from a lot of the agencies and agents I'm talking to is focus on renewals and try to help those folks as much as you can. And, you know, and then when the malaise ends, be ready for the swarm.
On the marketing side, Sean and team, the Humana, this was the news last week. Humana all of a sudden completely turned off the switch. So we knew United Healthcare is not going to actually have at the marketing for the growth part, not going to participate this year, but the Humana was pitching that, hey, they are going to take over some United Healthcare members and participate, and they have big budgets, but all of a sudden they just stop. So that's not a very good news. So we are just trying to figure out why that is. And when we dug in, asked questions, it's not performance, it's not CPA. Enrollments are good, favorable. They just, it seems they just don't want to grow. And they just want to continue what United Healthcare is following.
Farzin, I've heard from a couple of sources that it's kind of a temporary turnoff, looking to the 15th as a possible, you know, kickoff for some more marketing. Have you heard that?
I have not heard that, so hopefully that's the case for the marketers. But yeah, haven't heard that. So there's no new news. And then I was at Baker's also on Monday. That was the provider and payers conference. That was payers issues. So the talks are beside a few regionals, very specific regionals like Clever Health in California and some others. Everyone is talking about a very slow AEP for Medicare Advantage. Lots of AI talks, lots of actually the AI companies that they are part of the group. It's just a huge plan for everything AI on both sides of payers and providers. Everyone is just investing big time. So it's a great opportunity for AI folks to just get into.
Right. Well, thank you. Any other comments on what's going on in the annual enrollment period? All right. Committee updates. I'll just go general. Does anyone from any of the committees have any updates they'd like to share with the group?
I'm happy to officially welcome Trend Capital to our I don't believe Jerry's on this call, though. Scheduled for a member spotlight soon.
Yeah, we kicked them to next week, correct?
We not scheduled two other new members.
Kaylin, can you
breaking up?
It's more of a, like, I don't know,
slow
mechanical.
motion.
Yeah, slow motion mechanical.
Dr. Roboto.
I guess that's what happens if you not finish your coffee.
Good now. Good now.
Good. It must be the AirPods then. Let's see. So did we get Trend Capital is officially joined? We did push two of our new members to their spotlight next week. That's Costin with WebGrit and Mike Lowry with Conversely AI. Thank you guys for your flexibility. We appreciate that. And we're working to get Trend Capital scheduled for their spotlight.
Great. Well, thank you. And then, like I said, nothing from the committees. Like I said, just back to the events, just, you know, Florida Compliance Summit, December 7th to 9th in Clearwater. Great time of year to go to Florida. And then, of course, ICMG, there is a discount code now in there. If you didn't get the early bird special, there is a discount code in there that you can take advantage of. So I highly encourage you to do that. And if there are no other issues, then, Mr. President, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Seconded. And we did record this, right? Because I think there's some good content opportunities that maybe would come out of a first half of this. And I can't believe I'm just thinking about this now. If whoever's in charge of the recording could send it my way, I can get it clipped up for us.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of them I've seen on the thing, so that
Good.
shouldn't be a problem to find one.
Somebody send me one. And thank you so much, everybody. It was a great meeting.
Hey, thank you. And Will, I'll send you an email on states. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.